Hello. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another live stream. Thanks for everybody who showed up early. Really appreciate you guys hanging around through all the intro music. Now that we've got everything set up, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be covering today. And let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me okay, or if you guys have any trouble whatsoever with the stream. But I'm very excited because today we're going to be covering how to use Liquid. So if you guys are not familiar with what Liquid is, it is a templating language that was created as an open source templating language, meaning you can use it on any project. But if you guys are familiar with Shopify, you'll know that Liquid is the templating language used for all Shopify themes and websites. So it's super important for you guys to understand how to use Liquid if you're going to be building your own Shopify themes, or even if you just have your own Shopify store and you want to make a few modifications here and there. So we have a lot of new Shopify projects coming up in the new year. So I thought, what better time than now to sit down and actually learn how to use the templating language that runs the entire theme development process for Shopify. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go really quickly and roll the intro, and then we'll jump into my screen. All right, let's go. All right, so here I am. This is a Shopify GitHub repository that has a bunch of information on Liquid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it over in the chat so that you guys can follow along. But we're going to be going through some of the basics and talking through kind of how everything works. And we're hopefully going to be writing a little bit of code to kind of get up to speed on how Liquid works. So let's go really quickly and just kind of talk about the basics, and then we'll go and we'll get set up to actually write some code. So the three things that you need to know about Liquid is that it uses a combination of objects, tags, and filters inside of their template files in order to display dynamic content. So essentially what's happening, and let's go into an actual theme here so that we can take a look. And here I'm just on a blank Dawn theme that I installed really quickly right before this stream, so nothing really important here happening. If you don't have a Shopify store to follow along with, I recommend that you go and check out partners.shopify.com. You can join their partners program and you can set up as many development stores as you want 100% for free, and you don't have to pay until you're ready to actually go and launch your store. So this is a really great way to get practice on how to actually write Liquid code, and more importantly, practicing building your own themes or extending the existing themes without having to go and invest in, a host or a server or anything like that, which is really cool. So here we've got the Dawn theme, which is the new theme that they released about 6 months ago for 2021. And there are a few things that changed, particularly the use of JSON objects for templates. We're not going to go into that too much. We've got other live streams on that on the channel that you guys can go and check out. But what I'm really interested in is some of these Liquid files. So let's go, and I want to show you just the anatomy of some of these Liquid files so that we can see kind of how it works, as opposed to maybe something that you might be used to, like HTML or PHP or anything like that. So this is a super bare bones Liquid file. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to move my big old head. Oh, there we go. That's actually fine. So here you can see that there are two things that are being passed into this Liquid file, and it's pretty much kind of like an HTML partial, if you guys are familiar with that. But here we've got some styles, very straightforward inside of the style tag. This is just basic CSS, so nothing really fancy happening here. But what I want to show you guys is how these tags are essentially querying the Shopify store for data and then pulling that data into your template. So here we've got a 404 page, which again is very basic. It's just showing some subtext, some title, and then some information so that you can continue shopping. So right here, this HTML is nothing new, but if we go and we look right here, we'll see these curly braces. And if you guys aren't familiar with templating languages like Handlebars or Liquid, then you might have never seen this before. But essentially what this is doing is it's saying we want to go and get information from this object, right? So first thing that we said again was, that it uses a combination of objects, tags, and filters. So here is your very first example of an object that we're actually querying so that we can display some data on the 404 page. So an object, it says here that it contains the content that Liquid displays on a page. So this allows you to query objects, variables, and then go and actually render them or display them with these curly bracelets. So all you need to do here, let's say you want to display the page title, is put that in curly bracelets, and it will actually output the title of that individual page. So that's how objects work. There are tons of objects that you're going to be able to query inside of Shopify. You can query the user object. You can query a product object. You can query an order object. There are all sorts of different objects that are created by the Shopify system, which if you're curious, I believe it runs on Ruby on Rails. We don't ever have to touch any Ruby code. Instead, we have access to these tags that will go and will generate that information for us. So it's a lot easier to actually pick up Liquid and actually start building Shopify themes, even if you don't have a lot of experience in programming. From my experience, you know, you can get away with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You don't really need to know a lot more other than that. Take it from me, I went and I paid a bunch of money to learn Ruby on Rails in a coding bootcamp, and I never had to use it again because a lot of times, if you're not doing hardcore backend development, you're just not going to need to write that kind of code, at least not if you're using platforms like Shopify that do everything for you. So the next thing that Shopify uses in terms of Liquid are tags. And this is really important because tags are essentially the logic that control what's happening inside of the template. So if you're familiar with Ruby or PHP or any kind of real programming language, you know that you have the ability to do logical sequences like if, else statements, case switch statements, all that kind of good stuff. And the only difference between tags and objects is that tags have a different kind of notation. So here you can see that there's one curly bracelet and then there is a percentage sign, right? So that is the difference in notation. And again, the difference in functionality is here we're rendering information from an object, right? Using the two curly bracelets. And then for tags, we're not actually rendering anything. We're actually going and saying, hey, this is a piece of logic that I want you to follow to determine whether or not you should actually render something. So here you can see a tag is being used, and then we're outputting an object based on whether or not that tag is true or false. Hopefully that makes sense. It'll all make more sense in a little bit once we actually get in and start writing this code. But it's really, really important that you understand kind of the difference between these three. So there are a few things that you can do here. You can do control flow iteration. You can do some template logic and variable assignment all through tags. We're going to go through each one by one in just a little bit. But let's go into the last of the three that you need to know if you're going to be learning Liquid for Shopify, and that is filters. So filters allow you to actually change the output of a Liquid object or variable that you queried. So let's go back to the example really quickly. And what I want to do is I want to show you how here we have an object that we're trying to render, but we also pass in a filter with this little straight line here, right? So here we're passing T as a filter, which we can come into the Shopify Liquid reference and we can actually see that for this one, they're passing in a filter and then they are appending something, right? So there are all sorts of different things that you can do here with filters. Let's look at Shopify filters. and see if we can get a good reference here. Let's do Shopify liquid filter so that we can get a little more specific here. And there are all sorts of filters that are available to you. Honestly, I don't know them all. I definitely use these references in order to understand which filters are available to me and which filters I should be trying to use. But we're going to go over a couple of really common filters, things like color filters, HTML filters, math filters, meta field filters, money filters. Let's go into the money filters because I think those are pretty straightforward. So, for example, right here, if you go and render an object that just has the number 145, you can pass a money filter and that will convert it to the currency amount that is set for your store. So if your store is set to US dollars, it will say, well, what is 145 in US dollars? That's 145 cents, aka $1.45. So there are other kinds of things that you can do other than just money. You can say you want to show the currency, right? In which case you can say, I want to pass in a filter that says money with currency. And what this is going to do is it will add, USD or CAD, whatever the currency is for your region that is set for your store, or that is set for the user that's browsing your store. It will go and it will show the correct price based on that currency. You can also go and do really, really small changes with these filters. You can go and remove trailing zeros. So this removes any kind of decimal points at the end, right? You can show money without currency. So this kind of will give you an idea of all of the things that you can do with filters, right? Usually you'll be able to pass in an object. So let's go back into these examples, right? We can pass in the name Adam, and then we can actually pass in multiple filters if we want to. Here we can go and we can actually capitalize the word Adam. So that's going to make the A capital A. And then we can prepend or add to the beginning of this string that we set. And we can say, hey, we want to add the word hello. And now the output becomes hello Adam. Right? So these are the three things that you really need to keep in mind when you're building or customizing on Shopify, because you need to know, what do I need to do? Do I need to use an object so that I can render something? Do I need to use a tag so that I can do some sort of logic? Or do I need to use a filter in order to make the object that I'm rendering look the way that I want it to look and display the correct kind of information, right? So this is kind of the basics of using Liquid. Okay, obviously there are a bunch of other things that you're going to need to know. Obviously, operators, if you're coming from any kind of programming language, the operators are going to be very, very similar. So this allows you to actually use logic using the tags, right? And you can say something like, hey, if the product title is equal to awesome shoes, then I want you to show this kind of logic. So we can go and I can talk through this documentation until I'm blue in the face, but I think that what's going to be really best for you guys is to actually follow along, and we're going to actually do a little bit of code together so that we can actually start to learn how these things work in unison. So in order to get this done, I've gone and just downloaded a copy of the Dawn theme. This is a super how can I say, this is a exact copy of the Dawn theme that comes pre-installed on your Shopify websites. You can grab this by just looking up Shopify Dawn theme, and then you can actually just download it from either Shopify themes, or if you scroll a little bit, you'll probably be able to find the GitHub URL where you can go and actually just download this. So you can hit download zip, unzip it. You're going to have the exact same files that I have here. And hopefully you've got a store to work with. Now, I've actually gone ahead and I've set up. So here, again, if you want to download the theme through Shopify, just click try theme and it will go and probably install it on your store. Let's go and close out some of these references that we no longer need. And what we're going to do is I've got right here a blank GitHub repository. And what we're going to do is we're going to link up this folder that we created to this GitHub repository. Okay, that way we can actually work locally on our machine and actually push up to the Shopify store. All right, so I'm going to really quickly open this up with code. This is going to open it up with Visual Studio Code, which is my IDE of choice or my code editor of choice. From here, I'm going to open the terminal. And I'm going to run git init. Let me make that as big as I can for you guys. And that's going to initialize an empty Git repository inside of this folder. Now you can see that all of these have turned green. What happened here is it's now tracking changes to these files. So if I run git status, and let's close this little alert, what it's going to do is it's going to tell me what are the new files that exist in this repository that have yet to be tracked. So an untracked file means it hasn't been added to the repository. So if we try to push up to this empty repo that we've got, nothing will happen because nothing has been added. So right here it says, hey, you want to use Git Add in order to track. So let's go ahead and run Git Add, and we're going to do -A. And what that's going to do is it's going to add all of them. So let me run clear, and we'll run git status one more time. And now here you can see these are now all the new files that were created, right? So they're no longer untracked, they are tracked files. And we can actually confirm that by coming here. If you're using Visual Studio Code, you can actually see what are the staged changes directly here through this IDE. So here I can see 226 files have been added, and I can go and either write my commit message here and then click OK, and it will go and actually push it up. Or I can go ahead and just write it directly in the terminal, which is just how I prefer to do it, but you do you, boo-boo. So we're going to do git commit -m initial commit of Dawn theme. From here, I can run git push origin master, and you'll see that all of the changes are no longer here because they are inside of a commit message, right? So we're going to run git push origin master, and that will go and actually push up to the repository. Oh, so there are a couple steps that we missed here. First, we need to do git remote add origin. And what that's going to do is it's going to take a look at whatever URL we specify after the command, and it's going to connect our folder that we're editing on our local computer with this repository that exists up on GitHub, right? So we're just connecting the two together so that they can communicate. So git remote add origin, and then we're going to paste the URL. So now if I run git remote -v, we can see the origin has been set for fetch and push locations. Fetch is where we're pulling down new data from, and push is where we're pushing new data up to. Unless you're doing some advanced stuff, they're always going to be the same. So that's all we need to do. Git remote add origin, paste the URL we got from Git, and now we can go and run our git push origin master. There we go. So now we've got our initial theme. If we refresh GitHub, there we go. So now we've got a little working repository that we could use here. There's another step that we're going to take, and that is inside of our actual Shopify store. So I'm going to log into my Shopify store. This one's going to be uxhacksliquid.myshopify.com/admin. Go to our online store. And now this is the theme that came pre-installed, but if we scroll down, you can go and click Add Theme Connect from GitHub, and you can actually go and connect your GitHub account, which I've already got mine connected, and you can select the repository here that you want to use. So this has all of the repositories on your GitHub account. I've already gone and connected it to that Shopify. Oh, this is actually the wrong one. So I'm going to disconnect that from GitHub, and we're going to actually add the correct one here. Let's go to Add Theme, Connect from GitHub, and let's select the repository called Shopify-Liquid. There we go. And we're going to use the master branch. So I'm going to click on connect. Cool. So now that that's done, you can see that it's getting loaded up right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up some super simple local development stuff. So let's do Shopify CLI in Google, and we're just going to look at the Shopify CLI for themes. This is going to give us a really quick reference that we can scroll down into. Right here, this command references will tell us what we need to do in order to connect our local store or our local theme over to a development environment that we're going to be working on. So first we're going to run Shopify login -- store, and then we're going to insert our domain. So again, right here, run clear. We're going to run Shopify login -- store, and then we're going to paste the URL of our store, which we have right here, uxhacks-liquid.myshopify.com. We're going to try to run that. So now it's asking me to please go and log in. I'm going to go ahead and do so. And now we are authenticated successfully. I can close that out. And now from here, I can go and select the actual organization that we're going to use. So in order to figure out which organization you're in, the easiest thing to do is to just go to your home. Let's see. Actually, you're going to want to go to, I believe, manage accounts. No, that's not it. Let's try stores. Okay. I'm going to show you guys a quick way to find it. If you guys are inside of your store, you can go into themes. And I believe if you go to edit code, is it this number? No, let's go. Let me see if I remember correctly here. I think we're going to have to log out to get this, or go in through partners. So if you go in through your partners dashboard and you log in through there, let's do that really quickly. You'll be able to look at your organizations, and these organizations have an ID associated with it. So I know that it's this one, the second one. I'm going to click on it. And now I'm going to grab this ID in the URL. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Hopefully you can, but there is a number ID in that URL. It says 212-6437. And again, if I want to confirm that this is the one I need, I can go into my stores and I can confirm that the store that I'm working on is in fact there. So that is the number 212. I'm going to go back into VS Code and I'm going to select number 3 right here. So let's go. How do we do it? Down with J and then enter. Now we've selected our correct organization. Now we're going to do a couple more commands here in order to get everything working. Let's see. We're good on that. Let's try Shopify theme serve and see if it works for us. There we go. Now it's viewing the theme and syncing everything up. So we'll give that just a second. And in the meantime, let me read the chat here. We've got Noah Perez says, love your channel. Thanks, Noah. I appreciate it, man. Hopefully everybody here gets to learn something new. I know that I definitely need to practice Liquid, if nothing else. So hopefully I get to walk away learning something new as well. I tend to always learn something new on these streams, which is why I love doing them. So this is almost done. What this is doing is it's setting up, I believe, a local environment that we can work on. that's going to essentially have these theme files on it. That way we can kind of preview the changes that we're making here in our theme files. Okay, so now we have a URL that we can use to preview the theme that we're working on. And we have a URL that allows us to customize the theme on the backend. So let's click on these. No one wants to know, where am I at? He lives in the Netherlands. I am in sunny Florida in the United States of America. This is asking me for my password, which I don't remember. There we go. So here we go. We've got our UX Hacks Liquid theme. This is a local version of it. You can see here that it's running on a local URL. And now we're going to be able to make changes in our theme and actually see them reflected here on the store. Let's actually click on the second URL, and this will allow us to open up the backend kind of view here for the development store. So we know that it's a development store because right here it says development, and here it's actually gives it an ID and all that good stuff. And here we can start to see some of the pages that we've got. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a new template that we could use, and we can actually add stuff into and kind of use as a starting point here. So let's go right here into our themes. I'm going to go into templates, and we're going to create a super simple template here. We've got Lore says, cheers from Sydney. Woke up early for this. Thanks for doing this, David. You're welcome, Lore. I'm sorry you had to wake up early for this. The replay will always be up, my friend. But hopefully you get to learn something new, as do I. What I'm going to do is minimize this. We don't need to look at it right now. And let's actually take this and see if I can run Beautify. There we go. And now we can see here how simple these JSON templates are. Again, we're not going to go super deep into JSON today, but what we're going to do is actually copy this. And we're going to create a new template. And we're going to call this liquid.json, which is pretty funny, but this is where we're going to have our liquid references live. And now we're going to go ahead and just paste in this code. It's really straightforward if you want to create it by yourself. It's straight up just a couple of curly bracelets. Inside, we've got sections, and this is going to tell us what sections are going to live inside of that page template. And then you can give your first section a name. You can call it main. You can call it whatever you want. Hats, if you want. So inside of that, another set of curly bracelets or brackets. Curly brackets, I think is the right one. We're going to call it brackets from now on. We're going to pretend I've been saying it right this whole time. And then inside of that, you just need to pass two things. You need to pass in a type, which again, you can kind of name this whatever you want. We'll just call this liquid ref, which is the liquid reference that we're building. And then next, we're going to pass in settings. And this is just going to be empty. Right after that, we're going to go to the end of the curly bracket for section. We're going to add a comma. We're going to add then another thing here. So if we actually close this, you'll see how it works. We've got section with some data inside of section, and then order, we're just going to go and call inside of regular brackets whatever the name of the section we gave it. If it's hats, it's hats. This one is main. But that's how you would build it if you wanted to build it from scratch. If not, you can go and actually just pull it from one of these if you're following along here. And let's go ahead and save that. We don't have to save the 404. We just need to save the liquid. And if we scroll up, it says template type liquid does not support JSON templates. Invalid JSON unexpected token. Oh, I deleted the wrong one there. So let's try that again. Template type liquid unknown key section. That's supposed to be sections. So let's see why this does not support JSON templates. I should know this, guys. I'm sorry that I don't. but I'm a little rusty, which is why I'm here learning all this stuff in the first place. Oh, I see. It's supposed to say main. Thank you, my friend. Still, we've got the error, so we will continue investigating. Honestly, guys, I don't want to sit here and learn too much about Liquid today. Or about JSON, excuse me. We're here to learn Liquid. We're not here to learn JSON. So I think we're going to drop this JSON stuff for right now. Again, if you want to learn that, we've got plenty of it and other live streams. But let's actually just turn this into a regular Liquid file. We're going to delete this. And we're going to go old school. And we're just going to go new file, liquid.liquid. And here's where we're going to write all of our actual Liquid code. So in order to see that this works, let's just write some HTML. It says this works. And now we are no longer getting those errors on liquid.liquid. So hopefully we can go now into here. And my goal is to be able to refresh and actually change the template here to a Liquid template. Let's scroll down, others. Okay. What am I doing wrong? Let's see, create Shopify template. Let's make sure we're doing this correctly. So how to apply a new template. Let me see here. We've got Noah says he likes the process because I make it real. Well, my friend, I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you people enjoy watching me struggle trying to figure things out on the internet and making a fool of myself. But I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it and say that I know how everything works all of the time. I'm here learning just like you guys are here learning. And it's important to just kind of go through this process, you know? It's really important to actually sit here and figure stuff out. What I'm going to do is I clicked edit code because I want to make sure that whatever change I made here is actually being pushed up. So I'm going to look for a liquid.liquid file in my templates folder, liquid.liquid. So it is here, which means that it should be working. We probably need to pass in some schema because this is Shopify. And the schema is essentially what's going to make it available to the rest of this stuff. I'm just surprised that some of these don't have any schema. But we're going to give it a try anyways. Shopify, new template, liquid. We are here to learn, my friends. Let's see, old tutorial, but should still be relevant here. Let's see. These are the template objects. All right, we're going to figure this out, my friends. Let's see. So this is actually here. Let me go into pages And what I want to see is if I can apply that to a new page that we create. Maybe it's not available through that backend editor, which is fine, but maybe we can still set it through pages. Lore says, watch some of your replays, but it's good to be on live sometimes. I get that. You know, I love going back and being able to see the replays, but there's just something about being able to ask questions that is really great. So we've got contact as a theme template here. What I want to do then is see where that's coming from. Contacts. So weird because I don't see a contact liquid file. That's okay. I'm going to save this. Let's view this really quickly. So this is where I hope we're going to be able to set all of our liquid stuff. I'm gonna refresh now here. Let's go into that page and see what we can do to get that liquid file available. Pages. It's interesting because I can click create template directly through here. Let's see what that does. Okay. So now we should have a template called liquid. But let me see the code because that's really what I care about. Edit code. Because I know I still don't see the thing that says this works. But I don't think we need this then. Let's just go ahead and delete it. And we're going to work inside of sections. Okay, so we've got our page here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go and add sections, but we're going to create some custom liquid, right? So now we have the ability to add a custom liquid section, and inside of this, we're going to be able to write our liquid code, so we don't have to mess around too much with this backend stuff that's I didn't figure out previously. My apologies. But now that we've got this, I'm going to close out all this other nonsense. We can start to go and actually write some liquid code. So going back to our liquid reference. And again, all I did here, guys, I'm going to pin this over to the right. All I did here was from the backend. God, it looks so different now. There we go. From the backend. Called. All I did here was create a template. Looks like you have to do it in full screen mode, but here you can click on this drop down and then you can go and actually go to pages. And from here, you can create a new template that will go and create a template for you that you can use pretty easily. Go back here into this liquid template. Oh, I see. We're previewing the wrong page. There we go. We want to preview the liquid page with the liquid template. And then all I did, add section, custom liquid. Now you can write your liquid code. So let's see. Here we've got the reference. And what I want to do is I want to write an example of an object, an example of a tag, and then an example of a filter so that we can kind of see the difference here. So custom liquid for an object, we're going to go and do the curly brackets. And we're going to go and we're going to query just like that, page.title. And now here we can see it says the title of the page. So I'm going to add another section, which is just some rich text. And we're going to move that right above it. I want to remove some of these that we're not using. I'm going to click them, just click remove block. And now here, this is going to be an object. And the object that we are rendering is page.title. Next, let's do another thing here. This one's going to be a tag, which again controls logic. And here we're going to then add some custom liquid. So our object. Now let's go and actually see what kind of tags we could use here. Next time, create in section after render it in theme.liquid. Yeah, I'm not a fan of touching theme.liquid except for global changes. I know it doesn't matter because this is like a test environment, but it's just kind of like a force of habit, you know? Just one of those things. Okay, tag types. Is this correct? No, these are tags inside of Shopify, and we want to look at liquid tags. So again, there are a few different types here. We're going to start with control flow. Okay. So what we can do here is we can do the curly bracket with the percentage, and that's going to start the actual tag. We can go and end it same way, percentage curly bracket. And inside of this is where we're going to write our logic. So here we can go and we can say if page.title, right? Because we know the page title is equal to liquid. We can say if page.title is equal to liquid, then inside of this, we can go and we can then say something. So if we wanted to, we can say, yes, the title is liquid. And then we can go and actually end our if statement again with the curly bracket, end if, end curly bracket. So now that that's done, we've got our object, right? Which is just taking the page title. And now we're taking the page title and we're putting that inside of a tag to check to make sure it is equal to this string, which is just some text. If it is, then it's going to give us this result. So very straightforward here, guys. We're starting really easy before we ramp up into slightly more complex stuff. Again, I'm just keeping these slightly organized by putting a heading here. This one is going to be, what is there? Objects, tags, and then filters. So this one is going to be a filter. And then let's go and add again some custom liquid. And filters, again, allow us to take an object or a string or anything like that and actually change it. So what we can do here is we can say we want to render by doing the two curly brackets, and we want to render hello world, right? And that should go and render hello world. But now let's say that we actually want to capitalize hello world. Obviously, this is a string, so you can just go and capitalize it, but we're pretending that this is an object, right? Let's pretend that we don't have control over what is inside of this, and all we have the ability to do is pass in filters to make it look the way that we want. So we can pass in a filter with this little line, and then we can go and say we want to capitalize the result, and now you can see that we do have a capital H, right? So super simple example here of objects, tags, and filters, but hopefully this gives you a good overview of kind of how this works. Now let's go into a little bit more of how tags work. Objects we'll get to in a second because we'll have to create orders and stuff to actually get into that. But control flow and these actual tags, you're going to be using them a lot if you're going to be building your own themes. And the reason being is that you're probably going to want to have some level of logic on your website. You don't want to show every message for every type of product. You might want to show a specific message for a specific kind of product. So understanding how these logical operators work is really, really important. So we have an if statement here. Let's try the opposite of a if statement, which is going to be an unless statement. I'm going to add another custom liquid section here. We'll drag this up to the correct location. And let's go and add now an unless statement. So we might say unless, and we can go and actually close that out. And I like to just get into the habit of closing everything out syntactically. So end unless is how you end that. And now here we can go and give it some logic. So we can say unless page.title is equal to liquid, then I want you to go and do this. All right, so if we scroll up, let's see, what did I do wrong? Unless the page title is equal to liquid, then I want you to do this. Okay, understand. So the page title is not liquid. So here we can see that the page title is liquid. So because we ran an unless, which is the opposite of an if, this does not actually change. So if we actually came and changed the page title, then that would actually change what you're seeing here. Let's see, can we change the page title? So the way we do that is inside of our backend, actually. So let's go. I'm gonna have to click exit in a new tab. And we're gonna go down to our pages, and we're gonna change this page title from liquid to not liquid. We're gonna save. And now when we refresh here, we should see, instead of yes, the title is liquid, we should see the other one that says the page title is not liquid, right? So let's refresh here. I'm actually going to save, because that's going to save all of our logic. And now it will refresh. And now you can see that the unless statement has just kicked in because we changed the title, right? This is super basic stuff, guys. So I'm sorry if I'm boring you, but it's really important that we cover the basics before we get into kind of a little bit more advanced programming here. So else if is another one. So this is a way that we can combine those two if and unless statements into just one. So let's do that. So here we've got our custom liquid. Let's actually add another one and let's drag it to the correct section. Inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to write an if statement, just like the previous one. We're going to say if page dot title is equal to liquid, then I want to do this thing. So instead of just saying end if the way that we did before, right? What we're going to do is then say else. And you can use else or you can use else if. Well, I'm just going to use else because this is a binary option. It either is liquid or it is not liquid, right? For the page title. So we're just going to use else here. And we're going to close that curly bracket up. And then we're going to end our if statement. All right, so here is the if statement. If the page title is liquid, then do this, else do this, and then end if. So here we can go and just reiterate. The page title is liquid. And then here we can say the page title is not liquid. So now you can see that we've got the exact same thing going on here, but we were able to do it instead of in two separate things, two separate tags using if and unless. Now we're just using an if and an else statement. So we're saving some time, we're saving some space here, and it's pretty much doing the exact same thing. If we come and we change the title back to liquid for that page, then we're going to actually see here both of them update accordingly. Let's refresh. Oh, still says the page title is not liquid. Oh, somehow I ended up on the contact page. I'm not sure how that happened. We'll go back to the liquid page. There we go. Yes, the title is liquid. The page title is liquid. Perfect. So super simple stuff here in terms of operators. Case is another one. We're not going to cover that right now because we just don't have enough cases to make it interesting. But we'll probably get to this a little bit later in the stream, guys. Okay. Next, let's go into that's control flow, which is again inside of tags. It is a way for you to control the flow of data that is being displayed on a page. Next, let's go into iterations. So for this one, we're going to need to actually start creating some sections and start working with some actual data. Let's actually go and let's do that. What I want to do, and this is just me learning, right, is I want to see what file was created here when we created a page called liquid. We should see if we edit code, a liquid.json file that was generated. I could be wrong, but there we go. We got a page.liquid.json, and let's expand this really quickly so you guys can see. Let me actually move my big head to the other side really quickly. And what this does is it has a data object, a JSON data object that contains all of the sections that we just created. It even tells us what order the sections need to be in, right? So if we expand this, here we can see the page settings, and inside of this, we've got all of the different sections, and all of the code that we wrote for a custom liquid is here as well. Very cool. Now I'm just going to go and confirm that this is visible here. And it's not. So what we're probably going to need to do, because this should be connected to GitHub, is we should see some commits now. No? You making me a liar? Okay, so for whatever reason, this is not committing in both directions. It's committing in one direction, but not in the other direction. So I'm just going to create a new file here. We're going to call this page.liquid.json, and I'm going to paste in what we had previously, just so that we're not losing any work here. Valid JSON, unexpected token. Okay, I'm going to run this through a JSON validator just to see what's wrong with it, because it's literally the code that I got from here directly. And to do this, again, just search up JSON validator or JSON lint, and you can go and paste it in, validate JSON. This is valid JSON, super strange. So we'll leave that because we're really just trying to back up here this work. So let's go and actually start creating some custom sections here that we can actually use to do some logic. So this stuff, really ugly, but hopefully you guys understand how that works. What we're going to do is create a custom section using liquid. And we're going to do this by going into sections. And we're going to do new file. And let's give this a name. What do we name this, guys? What are we going to create? Let's just call this liquid reference, because I have no idea what to call this. We'll call this .liquid. Inside of this, we're going to need to pass in some information in order for the section to register properly. We can't just create a blank file, unfortunately. So let's look at, am I wrong? Can you just create a blank file and have this work? I don't think so. But we're here to learn. So I'm going to refresh here this backend, and I'm going to see if I can add that section. I don't believe I can unless I add some other pieces of information here. Liquid, yeah, that's not there. So we'll need to actually go and create, if I remember correctly, some schema. And the schema is going to let us know where we can go and actually create it. So to save some time here, let's actually go to a past project that we worked on. Here I can actually just pull the code that we created for our liquid section. And here we can see the kind of schema that we used. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'll move my big head again. So we're going to have to pass in a name for our section that we created. And we're going to have to pass in some settings. We're going to have to pass in an ID, a type, and then a label for those settings. And then another thing that we can do is we can pass in a template. What do I call this? A template data object, I suppose. And we're just going to let it know what templates it's allowed to work on. Right from here, blocks we don't have to worry about. I don't believe we need to worry about presets, but I could be wrong. I believe that's all that we need. So let's go and actually build this together. So we've got our schema, and the way that I was able to just add schema like that by typing schema and clicking enter is by using an extension. It's called Liquid Syntax Highlighting, and then Shopify Liquid Template Snippets inside of VS Code. This will allow you to not just highlight the correct way when you're using Liquid, but it will also allow you to use those shorthands so that you can do things like style sheet, and it will add the Liquid tags correctly for you. So let's go ahead and start on this schema. First, we're going to give it a name, and we're going to pass in whatever we want to call it. We'll call this liquid reference. This is where our liquid stuff is going to live. And then we're going to do a comma, and we're going to pass in some settings. Inside of the settings, we're going to create an array, which is just the regular brackets. And inside of this, we're going to go and pass in a JSON data object as well. There we go. From here, we're going to pass in three things. We're going to pass in an ID. Whoa. Then we're going to pass in a type. And we're going to pass in a label. And again, the reason that it looks like this is because we didn't put the little commas at the end. So we're going to do that really quickly. And we don't have to do it for the last one. So just the first two. Now for the ID, this is the ID that's going to be assigned to this section anytime it renders. So we'll just call this liquid ref, something like that. Oh, and it needs to be inside of the double here. So keep that consistent with this. Next, for the type, we can just pass in text. And then for the label, this is the instruction that we're going to give to users on the front end or on the back end when they're actually adding the block. And this is just a reference for, Shopify Liquid. Cool. Next, we're going to go and actually specify what templates this can be loaded inside of. So we can do it in index. Let's see, what other templates are we using here? We're using this liquid template, which if I remember correctly is referred to as page.liquid. And hopefully that makes it available here. Let's actually take a look. To make sure I'm doing this correctly. This is the template object. Looks like we're just gonna have to do it and see. Invalid template page.liquid. Okay. So let's just try page. And then let's try doing liquid here. Invalid templates property liquid. So liquid is not. Does this just make it active for all pages? Let's see. Shopify liquid section schema. This will give us the data on actually using these schema brackets. And if we go down to templates, now we can see how this works. Article, index, page, and product. Okay, so page will probably just make it available to all pages. And I know after using the page, we're going to want to add it to product. So let's try that. Let me see if presets are required. I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, the presets just is showing what blocks it will have by default when it gets added. So I don't believe we need it. Let's go and save it. We're not getting any errors. Let's go and check for this code on our backend, see if it exists now. So again, I'm just going to hit here, edit code. And let's go to our sections. And now we've got our liquid.ref or liquid-ref section that we created with our schema. So what I want to test now is if I reload this, if I'm able to actually add in this section here. So we're going to be on a page. Because we specified it here in templates, we should be able to add it, at least in theory. We're going to test that right now. Come on, Shopify. Watch, as soon as I try to refresh this, it just loads. There we go. Now let's scroll down here and let's try to add a section. And this one's called liquid ref, right? Okay, so this is still not showing up. Let's try going to like a regular product page. Or let's just try going to a regular page, default page. And let's try adding it here. Okay, still not working. Let's see what we did wrong, guys. Schema, got name, liquid reference, settings, and then the templates that it's available on. Okay, let's actually try doing presets. It seems like it might be required. So we're just going to do presets and we're going to test to see if that fixes it. Inside of that, an array, inside of that array, a data object, right? Once you get used to it, it's pretty straightforward. It's a little menial. I'm not going to lie to you guys, but once you know it, you know it. So we're going to pass in a name and we're going to pass in a category. So the name for this one is just liquid reference, the exact same thing up here. And then the category, you can give it your own category. You can group it with other stuff. Kind of up to you. We'll just call this reference. Okay. Let's save this and see if we get an error. No error. Let's refresh here. And let's see if we can now add this section in. Add section. Now we see liquid reference. Very cool. And we see our H1 that we loaded in as well. Very cool. All right, so to recap here, guys, we created a section, right? A liquid section inside of our sections folder. Inside of that, we created a schema tag. And then we passed in a name, some settings, the templates that we wanted to show on, and the presets. You don't need to include the templates. By default, I believe it'll show on index and page. Let's try that, but you do need to include presets. Even though the presets is like the same crap that you see here, we still need to do that. Let's refresh here, and I want to see if it works without actually specifying the templates. I want to see if that makes it available everywhere, or if it makes it available nowhere. So it looks like it makes it available everywhere. To confirm this, let's go into pages, go into our liquid page, and let's try adding it there. Type in liquid, and now we see liquid reference. Very cool. So again, the only time you're going to need to use templates like this is if you only want it available on those templates. If you want your section available everywhere, you can just leave it like that without the actual templates tag inside the schema, and it will make it everywhere. It will make it available everywhere, excuse me. So let's go ahead and add our liquid reference here. And I'm going to just kind of hide all the other stuff that's here on this page, because we're not really going to look at it, at least not right now. I want to focus on this section right here. So let's go ahead and save. When we save that, it's going to automatically go and it's going to update our templates folder, specifically our page.liquid.json template that we created. And here now, if we scroll down, we can see our... Are you not here, sir? Let me see. If we check it on the back end, it should work. Not sure why it's not pushing in both directions. It's a little strange. So if we scroll page.liquid.json, now we see liquid ref. I'm a little concerned as to why it's not pushing. Like, I'm not able to fetch it if I make the change here. But if I make the change here on my local computer and save it, it does actually save it, which is super strange. Let me see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end this. I'm going to do Control-C to terminate the job. I'm going to run clear. Now, if I go and I actually try to work on this, it's probably not going to work because I stopped the server. So we're going to do one more time Shopify theme serve. And I'm just going to let it kind of reconnect and do its thing. Just because I'm not seeing it pushing in both directions, which is not what we want. So let's open this again. I just want to make sure that everything works here. Pages, liquid. So that works. Now, what I want to see happen is if I actually rearrange this or delete this, like let's say we move liquid reference to the top and we hit save, I want to see this change reflected locally on my machine. So let me go into that template, page.liquid.json. It's not reflected. That's so weird. All right, I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try git status. This is going to give us the code that we've actually changed. I'm going to just run git add. I'm going to push that up and see what happens. Git commit -m added new page template and section for liquid reference. We're going to run git push origin master. So here we can see our commit. Now, what should happen is if I actually edit this stuff, on this backend view, it's supposed to actually commit whatever changes happen on GitHub. I might need to just fix the GitHub connection for whatever reason, but let's see here. So here it is. If I save it, that is supposed to push up to GitHub. It's not. And because it's not, then it's not actually changing here. So let me go really quickly and just troubleshoot this. Shopify Liquid Master. Let's view these logs. Receive theme files to succeed in. Let me try resetting to the latest commit and see if that fixes everything. It's not supposed to only work one way, Noah. It's supposed to work in both directions. I'm not sure why it's not working right now in both directions. Right now, it's only working in one direction, which is a little frustrating. I'm not going to lie to you. But these are the fun little quirks of being a Shopify theme developer, I'm sure. So let's go and actually edit the code here. And we're just going to make small changes here to see if we can push them both ways. I'm going to try editing the code directly this time. So let's go into our sections. Got our liquid reference section here. And what I'm going to try to do is just change this at H1. This works in both directions now. We're going to save. And we're going to check to see if that actually did anything on our local machine. Nothing is on our local machine. Let's go and check to see if it committed it to GitHub. And it did not commit it to GitHub. Okay. Something here is wrong for sure. Let's look at the Shopify CLI and let's see if we did something wrong. Shopify CLI as a new feature. You know, it's great in theory. A lot of things are really great in theory, but it's a little buggy. I'm going to stop this one more time. And I'm curious to see if I use Shopify theme init. If I can get it to work both ways. Or I can do Shopify theme pull. Try that. And we're going to pull down tutorial master. Oh, I see. So we were working. This is why I had to do this, guys. So we were working here on the development environment. Can you guys see that? And that's why it's not actually linked to this GitHub repository. So we're making changes here. It is changing on our local machine, but it's not actually pushing up to this thing. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to actually pull down the GitHub version of this. It's going to now sync that in with whatever's on GitHub. And hopefully now the two-way push, once this is done, is going to work when we run Shopify theme serve. So very specific the way you have to set it up. I'm still hoping that they get really either better documentation or just better training on this stuff. Because I do this every couple weeks, guys, and I still struggle with it. So maybe you guys are super geniuses and you got it on your first try. But I think it took me a good long while to figure this out the first time around. Okay. Almost done pulling this. There we go. I'm gonna run git status. Says that all this stuff is different, which is really interesting because it's supposed to pull directly from GitHub. But let's go ahead and just merge that in. I'm gonna git add, git commit, syncing with GitHub repository. Run git push. I see, because we were supposed to run git pull origin master first. Okay, git pull -f origin master. Okay, git stash. Just stash everything. It says needs merge. Okay, people really making me work for it right now. Needs merge git. Deleted. So let's run git merge -- abort. Fix this real quick. Then git stash. No local changes. Now git pull origin master. Okay, automatic merge failed. Let's try forcing it. Okay, still doesn't work. So fun, guys. So fun. Nothing more fun than this. Git status. Deleted by us. I'm gonna just do git reset. And that'll reset things based on the Git environment. Okay. On branch master, nothing to commit. That's so weird. Okay, let's just fix this stuff manually, I guess. Deleted. Merge changes. You deleted both of these. I want you to actually add them back in. Then we'll commit that. So let me see here. We run git status. Now everything is clean. We run git pull origin master. We are already up to date. Okay, so that fixed everything now. Now let's run. Sorry about that, guys. Very complicated here for a second. But now we should be able to run Shopify theme serve. And we should be able to serve up this theme. And now, in theory, everything should be synced with GitHub. We're going to obviously test. There we go. Now it's pushing in both ways. Update from Shopify 7 minutes ago. Okay, so now Shopify is able to write to this, which is good. That's what we want. We want to be able to make changes on our local environment and push up to Shopify, but we also want to be able to make changes on Shopify and have it push or pull into our local environment, which is what we want. Sorry for all of the code there, but if it's not working properly, we got to fix it. You know what I mean, guys? So to recap here, the way that we fixed it is we ran right here, Shopify theme pool. And because we went and actually set up the theme in the backend right here, we were able to pull this GitHub version, and now we're able to be synced with this instead of being synced with the local development version that we were using. So if we scroll up here, you see this is the development site, which again, we can push up to, but we weren't able to pull from. So now, as soon as this is done, we should be able to start working on our liquid code. And we're going to get into now some more complex parts of liquid. So some of the things that I want to cover are going to be, in addition to building custom sections, is going to be using blocks inside of your sections. And then hopefully we can get into snippets and all that good stuff as well. A lot of work to get this set up, but it'll be worth it, my friends. Let's see, oh, something else. I think I closed out all the Shopify liquid references that I had. Here they are. So we went through control flows already. We're going to do some iteration. We'll cover the theme tags and the variables. And then I want to get into, see, the Shopify liquid code example so that we can actually start to make some things that are going to be helpful for you guys to know instead of just covering the basics. I might make another video that's actually going through all of the basics. If you want that, let me know in the comments. It won't be a live stream. It'll be a pre-recorded video, just because it's going to take a while to kind of get you some good examples for everything. But happy to do that if it's something you're interested in. So now we've pushed up. We've got our URL that we can view, again, our local site. But we can also see now where we can edit the backend. And what I want you guys to notice is we should no longer see the same ID here. Oh, looks like it is the same ID anyways. But hopefully it is synced up properly. We're going to test it. And the way that we're going to test it is we're going to go into our pages. We've got our liquid page. And what I want to do here, see, this works in both directions now, is I want to actually try changing this. So liquid reference, we're going to go and add a heading to replace this. So custom heading added from Shopify backend. I'm going to save this. We're not going to see any change yet, but I'm going to save this. And we're going to test to see that this change initiated a push on GitHub. So it did not. That is okay. What I want to see here is if it works in the other direction. So here is our liquid reference. This is the text that we had placed. Now we're going to use liquid in order to render the information that we set up here in Schema. Okay, so inside of Schema, we can actually go and we can say, hey, we want to get the settings for this section. And specifically, I want to show, what is it, the text or the type? Let me see here. So let's do this really quickly. We're going to do in this H1 curly brackets. Inside of the curly brackets, we're going to then query the section object. So the section object is this file that we're inside of, right? So we're going to query that. And then we want to get inside of this section, we want to get something from settings, right? So we're going to do section.settings, right? And from inside of this, what I want to do is I want to actually get this piece of data. So we're going to query it using the ID that's going to return a text object, and it's going to return specifically the text that we added in here. Okay, so we're going to do section.settings.liquid-ref. So again, we're querying this section that we're on. We're specifically getting this settings object, and then we're pulling in whatever is saved with this ID, and we're placing that in the H1, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. That's going to then push up in theory, so that if we refresh, it works. Now we can see custom heading added from Shopify backend, right? So this is this text that we added right here. Now, because we linked it to that object, right, using these tags, we can actually change this text and it will change it in our theme. So now I can change this text and it will update, right? If I save it, now we should have it in here. I'm going to run git status to see what changed. Unfortunately, it still is only pushing in one direction. I'm going to have to figure out on stream why it's being like that. At least here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually update the page.liquid.json file that we created. So here we can see that it actually updated, but it's not actually pushing up to our local environment, which is a little sad. But that's okay. We'll just keep working in one direction for now. So now that we've got this liquid reference, I'm going to go and just name this liquid reference. What I want to do is I want to create a block that is going to live inside of this section. So liquid sections are really great because you can put information like this. So let's actually go and look at liquid fields that you could use here. Let's see, Shopify liquid fields. So these are liquid objects. These are all of the liquid objects that we can actually query. So we'll get back to this. There are global objects, which are products, articles, blogs, URLs, carts, all that good stuff. And then there should be content objects, which are specific to that page template. Let's see. What I want to do is I want to show you the different types. So let me see if I can find that for you. Let's see here. You can tell this documentation hasn't been updated because we still see the old editor and not the 2.0 editor. A search type here. There we go. One day this documentation is going to be easy to use. One day. It's just not today. So block settings. Yes, I know. Here we go. So we've gotten finally here to see the basic input settings. So this, if you guys can see it well, these are the kinds of things that you can actually go and create in terms of data here. Let's create one of each. I think it'll be good for us to see what each of them do. Okay, so let's pull this up. So all we need to do is create another setting data object here inside of the array. So in theory, I should be able to just add a comma here, add another JSON object, and then we should be able to now go and add the ID, and we'll call this one liquid checkbox. Type, we're going to set that to checkbox. And then for a label, we'll go and set that to a checkbox in liquid. So let's go ahead and save that. Make sure that there's no errors. We're good. And now we should be able to, let's go back to where we were. Should be able to refresh this, and we should see a new field here that we can add. So now we have a little checkbox. Very cool. So let's go ahead and check it. I hit save. And now we're going to figure out how we can actually get some data to display if that box is checked. So let's try that out here really quick. And this is going to be a good opportunity for us to use something like, what are they? Tags, right? So tags allow us to do some sort of logic. And here we can go and we can query the object. We can say if section dot settings dot, this one is called liquid checkbox, is equal to true, then I want to do this thing. So we're going to do really quickly the end if, just so that we don't forget. And what we want to display if it's checked is maybe an H2 that says checkbox is checked. Let's go ahead and save that. Again, I'm going to just really quickly check my terminal, make sure that there are no errors. We're good. So if I refresh here, hopefully we'll see some text that says a checkbox is checked. There we go. Checkbox is checked. So here you can kind of see how we would go and actually create our custom panels on the back end, and how we can go and either render them using object tags, or we can use logic in order to figure out what we want to render, right? This is an if. If you guys wanted to, you could go and add an else statement in here. And this says, if this is true, then do this. If it's not true, then we want to do this. So maybe we want an H2 that says checkbox is not checked. Let's save that. It'll push up to our development environment so that when we refresh, we can actually toggle the checkbox on and off, and it will change what is displayed. See that? Really simple stuff here, guys. We're starting simple and we're working our way up. Let's try another thing here. So we did checkbox. Let's do the next one, which is going to be number. So again, we're going to come here to settings. We're going to add another comma, and we're going to add another set of curly brackets. Inside of that, we're going to add an ID. We're going to add a type. And we're going to add a label. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy this so that I don't have to keep rewriting it. And now let's give it an ID. We're going to call this liquid dash number. The type is going to be number. And then the label, we can just say add a number. All right, this is whatever label is going to show up on the front end or on the back end. So now we should see another thing here on the bottom that says add a number and allows us to add or specify a specific integer. So here now we can add a number. Let's add 100 and save it, but we didn't write anything to render this, right? So let's go and actually render that up top. Now We could use logic here if we wanted to, but I think let's just go and actually just call section.settings, and then we're going to call it by the ID. So if we scroll down here, you can see the ID is liquid-number. Save that. And now we should be rendering whatever number is there. We refresh. Now we can see it's 100. If we remove it, it goes to 0. Now we can put whatever number makes us happy here. Doesn't matter what the number is, it will render. But let's say that we only want to show a number if there is a number added. If it's empty, we don't want it to show 0. We want it to just hide, right? So let's do some logic here using liquid tags, right? So again, we're going to open a tag. We're going to use these percentage signs to let Shopify know that this is logic. And now we're going to say, unless section.settings.liquid. And let's try that. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I think what this is going to do is say, unless there is anything contained inside of here. Actually, we're going to do if. If there's something contained inside of here, then I want you to show the number. If there's nothing shown in there or set in there, then we want you to just end the statement. So let's try that. And let's refresh here. So add a number. Looks like that's not working. Let's see. There should be, in theory, an operator that we can look at. Let's look at these real quick. These are iterators. Not quite what we're looking for. No, that's not it either. Let's see. Shopify liquid operators. Now let's look at the actual operators we could use. So equals, does not equal. Is there a way that we can see if it's empty? If not empty, is this a thing? See, I come from a WordPress development background, and we just are able to say if something is not empty. Yeah, this doesn't seem to work. Oh, if is not equal to nothing. Okay. I mean, not sure why they wouldn't just shorthand that, but we'll do what they say. Is not equal to nothing, then show the number. Try that. Where we at? Right here. We're gonna reload. There should be no number displayed because it's empty. Okay. Making me a liar. Try saving this. I'm curious. Still shows 0. Why? If not equal to 0. What am I doing wrong here? Does not equal. If section settings. Oh, dot liquid dash number. Okay, so we're doing all sorts of things wrong here. Let's try it like this and verify that it needs an operator in order to work. These little typos will get you every time, my friends, every single time. Okay, if it's empty, looks like if it's actually empty, it will default to something. So let's try it not equal to an empty string. Reload here. Yeah, so it looks like no matter what you put, even if it's empty, it will default to 0 because it is a number. It doesn't actually have an empty state. So we have to say if not equal to 0. Then we want to show the number. Let's try that. All right, so now if it's empty or 0 because it is a number field, it will hide that field. But if we add a number, it will show the number right away. Again, we could even come in here and we can say if the liquid number is, what is this? Less than or equal to 0, then it will not display. So now what we're doing is saying, hey, if this number is 0 or a negative number, then don't display anything. Let's refresh here. Okay. Did I do this wrong? Okay, I did this wrong. So it's supposed to be the other way. Oh, if the number is greater than or equal to 0, then I want you to show the number. I got a little confused there. But we're on the right track, my friends. Okay, so now it's only showing for negative numbers. So what I want to do is actually remove the equal. So if the number is greater than 0, I want you to show it, else don't show anything. We're gonna reload one last time here. And I'm gonna show you how you can take this logic and use it to actually do some useful stuff in just a second, okay? So here, a very common use for this is to specify how many posts you might want to show on like a blog or something, or on a specific section, but I'll get to that in a second. Let's go and continue showing you what are the different kinds of basic input settings you can use. There are, and let's actually organize this stuff a little bit better, my friends. So this is going to be an H1 that controls text. This is the H1 that controls a checkbox. This is the H1 that controls number. And now we're going to list out all the other ones we need. We're going to do a radio button. We're going to do a range. We're going to do select. We already did text. We don't have to worry about that, but we do have to do a text area. So these are the remaining ones. Let's go and add radio, which again, all we need to do here, add ID type and label. This one's going to be radio. And let's go ahead and come down here. Not really sure how the radio works. It probably has something. I feel like the radio, we need to actually pass in some variables here. Like we can't just say it's a radio, because a radio button are like options, right? So we need to go and actually pass in options to this one. So we're gonna create an array. Inside of that array, JSON data object. You guys know the deal. Now here we're going to pass in two options. So there's going to be two data objects. Okay. And we're going to need to pass in a value and a label for each one. Okay. I'm going to copy this really quick so that we can place it here. And value is going to be whatever is going to be rendered in the code. So when you actually call it, you're going to be able to specify whether you want the value or the label. By default, it will render whatever the value is. So in this case, the value should be lowercase. I'm going to go ahead and say this is option -1. And for the label, we'll call this option 1. And now for value, we'll call this option -2. Again, lowercase and with a dash in case we need to use this value in our code. And then label for that is option 2. Let's go ahead and save it. And what I want to do now is I want to render whatever selection was selected. So we're going to go and actually get, let's see. Let's render with our curly brackets, and we're going to say, I want to get section.settings, and I want to get the liquid radio value, right? Liquid-radio. And in theory, that should now render. Let's go and reload. We should see on the back end now here, some radio buttons. And let's actually add a number here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we've got our radio. We can see option 1. If we change it, option 2. So let's see if we can actually get liquid-radio.label and see if that works. I'm gonna save it. Okay, that did not work. Okay, let's see. Shopify liquid radio. I don't think I use radio buttons too much. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. But I know that it is important. Gosh, what is all of this? Oh, this is all the information that comes on a radio button. Oh, this is a lot of data. So how do I get the label? This is me setting it in JavaScript. This is not what I need. Oh, I see. What we want is dot options, right? Because we're querying this section. We're going inside of settings. Then we're going and we're querying liquid radio, right? And then I think we want options dot label, right? So let's try that out. Let's try dot options dot label and see if that works. Okay, that did not work. Let's try just dot options and see what happens here. It's possible that you might need to only pull in the value. It seems very strange that you can't grab the label though. But the label might just be something for the front end. Let's see. Let's figure this out, guys. Very interesting. Is there no way for me to get? Let's see. We're going to do a little bit of Google searching, guys. See if I can find a good one here. It looks like you just have to pull in the value. So this is getting the value by default. I think that's just how it is, my friends. So if you need them to be the same, you can just change them. If you need the label to be the value, you can change them to be exactly the same, and that should not break anything in theory. But it doesn't seem like you can just get... Yeah, see? Doesn't seem like you can get the label. If anybody figures out how to do this, whether you're live or watching this replay, let me know in the comments because I'm really curious. It seems so strange that I can't specify that I want the label inside of options, but I guess that makes sense because this is the backend value and this is a front end value. And right now we're working on the backend. So let's use some logic to actually make this useful, right? What we're going to do is we're going to create a Shopify liquid tag, which by now you guys are professionals at creating these. And we're going to say if section.settings.liquid radio is equal to option 1, then we can go and we can say option 1 selected. Now, else we can say option 2 selected. There we go. And I'm just making sure that my values are the same here. So let's refresh here and hopefully it will show our custom text now. Option 1 selected. If we change it, option 2. Very cool. So let's move on. I actually want to change these from H2s because they're kind of distracting to just regular p tags. We'll just leave them as plain text. And just some line breaks here to make it easier to read. And let me comment out these that we haven't done yet. All right, let's do range next. So for range, we're going to do pretty much the same thing, but there are a few different types of options that we need to pass. So let's go and first create it inside of our schema. We're going to scroll down here. And again, we're going to come to the end of this data object, comma, and create a new data object. Inside of this, we're going to pass in an ID. We're going to pass in a type. But because it is a range, right, we're going to have to specify a minimum number in the range and a maximum number, right? So we can say we want to show numbers anywhere between the number 1 to the number 12, right? So let's do that. We're going to say there is a min. This is the minimum number that you can select in the range, and it's going to be the number 1. And then we're going to pass in a max. And this is the maximum number that you can go up to. And for that, we're going to say 12. Then we're going to say what the step is. So essentially this means, can you move it one at a time, or do you have to move it, for example, let's say 3 at a time, right? In our case, we want them to be able to select any number between 1 and 12, but you might want to say they can only go up in, integers of 3. Let's say, for example, you wanted to show 3 blog posts at a minimum with a maximum of 12 blog posts, but they can only select 3, 6, 9, or 12. If you wanted to do that, then you would say the minimum is 3, the maximum is 12, and the step is 3. So let's do it that way, because I want you guys to understand where I'm going with this. There are a few other things that you can pass here. Obviously, we need to pass in the label, which I forgot. Sorry about that, guys. But you can also pass in the unit. So the unit here is really just so that people understand kind of what this is controlling. So you might say pixels is the unit, percentage is the unit. For us, the unit is going to be number of posts. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but we're going to try. And then you can, for all of these that have options like this, you can select a default. If you don't select the default, like on the radio, by default, the default will be value or the option number 1. For this one, we want the default to be 3. If you don't specify a default, I believe it's going to default over to the minimum number. So we're just going to specify it to cover our bases. And now let's go ahead and fill out these IDs. This one's going to be liquid dash range. The type is going to be range. And then the label is going to be range. I believe that's everything that we need in order to do the back end. Now let's go and actually render whatever the number is in the front end. We're going to come down here to range. We're going to query the object, and we're going to say we're looking inside of this section. I want the settings array that we created, and then I want you to find, what was it? Liquid dash range, and I want you to show whatever number is selected there. Let's save it, refresh back here. Now we should see a range. Oh, turned me into a liar. What did I do wrong here? Let's go into our terminal. We have an error, invalid schema. Setting with ID liquid dash range, unit is too long. What? Are you crazy? Unit is too long, max 3 characters. Okay. So we don't need units because that was really just instruction for the user. Let's refresh and see if that fixes it. Again, if you want to use pixels or percentage, that's fine. But here we have our range. It starts at 3, defaults to 3. And now if we try to move it, it's going to move up in sets of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12. Very cool. Let's do one more, and then let's actually start to build stuff that is useful instead of just going through all of the reference. All right. So let's see, what's the next one? We got 2 more. We've got select. Okay. And we can already kind of, because this follows a very specific kind of formula, we can already write the output here if we know what the ID is going to be. So I know that it's section.settings, and then whatever ID I give it is going to be liquid dash that ID, or dot whatever that ID is, which is liquid dash select, right? So now we can come down here. Again, this is the last one that we wrote. We're going to do a comma, another data object here. And now we can go and actually do a select. So let's go ahead and pass in, same thing we always pass in, ID. We're going to pass in a type. We're going to pass in a label. And because this is a select, which is a dropdown, we're going to need to specify what the options are for each of the dropdowns, right? So let's go ahead and pass in options. We're going to put an array in that, and in the array, another data object. So the options have a value and a label. And we're going to do 3 of them. So let's do this, 2, 3. So there's going to be 3 options. And right here, we can also say which one we want the default to be. Okay, so let's go and set up the value. We can say this is option 1. And I want the front end and the back end to be the same, so I'm just going to leave them as is. Option 2. Option 2. This one is option 3. And we want option 2 to be the default. Okay. Let's open up our terminal so that I can make sure there's no errors when we save. No error. Oh, invalid JSON and tag schema. Okay. Invalid JSON. Oh, we didn't fill out a bunch of stuff, guys. Let's fill out the ID. This one is going to be liquid-select, we said. The type is going to be select, and the label will just be select. Let's save it again. Okay. Section liquid select. Options is required. Options with an S. There we go. No errors that time. So we should be able to see our dropdown now. There we go. Select defaulted to option 2. And now we can go and specify which one we want. Okay, we're almost done here, guys. We got one more of these basic fields to go through, and that is text area. It is literally the easiest one other than text. We're just going to render really quickly section.settings.liquid-text area. And we're going to make sure that we use this ID when we create it. Okay, so let's go back down here. This is the last one we created. So comma, curly brackets, and we're going to pass in the ID. I'm getting really good at this, guys. ID type and label, right? I believe is all that we need for text area. Yeah, you could put a default if you wanted to, but we'll just leave it at that. So ID, we called it liquid-text area. The type here is text area. And the label text area. So let's go ahead and save that. Refresh here. And now we have our text area. Let me fix a couple things really quickly because I want all these labels to say exactly what it is. I'm just changing them really fast so that it matches. There we go. All right, let's refresh. So these are all of the really basic input settings that you can create in Shopify. We have text, which is super simple, just allows you to do text. Checkbox allows you to specify an option that they can turn on and off, so a toggle. Then we've got a number. Nice. Radio button, arrange, a select, and then an actual text area. There we go. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 basic input settings that you guys can use when you're creating sections or updating your theme using Liquid. Okay, I'm gonna save this. And now we're gonna get into actually doing some useful stuff here with these settings. There are a few things that we didn't go over. Specifically, they're called specialized input settings. And there are a lot of them. I think we can save that for another live stream, my friends. If you really want me to cover them, let me know in the chat. But I think instead, let's go and actually build something using what we just learned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new section, and we're going to call this blog-posts.liquid. And we're going to go through the exact same thing we went through the first time. We're going to create a schema object. Inside of that, I'm going to reference the one that we built previously so that I don't mess everything up here. So we're going to pass in here a name, and we're going to pass in some settings. Inside of that, we can then create our little objects. And the last thing that we needed, I believe, was presets, right? Or preset. I believe it didn't work unless we set presets up. So we're going to set up presets as well. Inside of that, again, JSON data object. All right, so presets, that takes a name and the category. And now we're all set up to start filling this stuff out, okay? So name, we're going to call this blog posts. For settings, we're actually going to go and use this range that we created. We're going to copy that exactly. Okay, paste that in. We're going to use a range for the settings. This way we can specify how many we want to show, and that will change the query as needed. In order for me to check that this works, I'm just going to really quickly on the front end, render section.settings.liquid-range, and that's going to pull whatever value is set here and display it on the front end so I can make sure that it's working properly. Now for presets, again, we'll go ahead and give this a name. I believe it can be the same name that you used. Yep, it can be the exact same name. Call this blog posts. And then for the category, we'll call this posts. So let's save it and let's see if, oh, not there. Let's actually see if we can use it here. So I'm going to refresh. Again, we were editing only that one section. And what we just did is we created a new section. So we should be able to come in here and add blog posts, which is the new section that we created. Blog posts. Oh, this was already set up, which is funny. That's okay. Blog posts. Try to give this a new name, like new blog posts. Let's see what we can do. Okay, clearly we missed something. Let's figure out what it was. Blog posts. Liquid. Let's see if maybe because this has a reused ID, if it might be an issue. There we go. New blog post. So that's worth noting. The ID for whatever section that you create, it needs to be unique. You cannot just reuse whatever you want here. Okay. So new blog post section. Inside of that, we have our range. Okay. So let's set the range to 3 by default and let's just save it. Now we're going to use liquid, and we're going to specifically use some, what are they called? Tags, right? And this tag is going to allow us to do some logic. So now let's get into some of the more advanced kind of iterators that we could use. So iteration allows us to run blocks of code every time that something occurs, right? So we can say for each product in this collection, do this. We can say else and the for. Let's see, do we need to do this? Because we do need to loop through all of the posts, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to look at this feature blog.liquid, which essentially does what we're trying to recreate here. And I just want to make sure that I'm on the right track in how they're looping through each of the posts. Okay, ours is not going to be nearly as advanced as this, but I do want you guys to see how this works. So right here, this is running on unless, and it's saying that unless the blog has like 0 articles, I want you to do all of this code, right? So articles.count is, again, this is, where'd you go? This is right here. These are specialized input settings. And you can see here that blog is one of them. So we can query the blog, specifically query the blog object. And then these are all the things that we can show, or that we can do with the blog object, excuse me. So all tags, we can query the articles, we can query the articles count, right? All this good stuff. So what we're going to do here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say unless blog.articles count is equal to 0, then I want you to do this thing. And we're going to end our unless so that we don't forget and ruin everything. So in order for us to test that this works, we can go and add some text here that says there are at least 1 blog posts on this website. Okay. Now what I want to do is refresh here. And it says here, there are at least 1 blog post published on this website. Because we're no longer working on this liquid reference, I'm going to just hide it for our sake so that we only see what we're working on. Okay. So here's the message that we created. What I want to do is I want to look at my actual blog posts. And actually, there are no blog posts. So I actually want to render inside of this blog.articles count, because I want to know what that number is really quickly. And that is a very easy way to do it. I'm going to reload. And we'll hide that. I don't see anything being put here. Blog.articles count. Okay, a little strange, but let's go and create a blog post here. And let's go ahead and add an image. Go to unsplash.com. We'll get some free images. That's fine. Got 6 of them. Okay. Looks like we're going to have some fun and resize these. There's a maximum size, unfortunately, for images. I mean, it's for your own protection. You don't want super massive images on your website anyways. So I'm going to open up Photoshop really quickly and we're going to resize this to a reasonable number. Either way, we're going to be using image filters so that we're not loading up just massive images all the time. But this will make it a little bit easier for us. There we go. Let's get some Bob Ross lorem ipsum. And this will be our blog post. Paste that in. All right. Cool. Let's go ahead and save that blog post. And now I want to refresh this to see if it shows the number 1 or not. It doesn't actually show. So it looks like, unless I'm crazy, you can only use blog.articles count inside of a tag and not actually render it. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem to be working for me. Or tag. It returns the total number of articles in a blog. Okay. We have 1 article in our blog now. Right here. Oh, it's set to hidden, guys. I'm gonna set that to visible. That'll publish it. Now, still not working. What am I doing wrong? The articles underscore. Unless blog.articles underscore count. That doesn't seem like I can just render this in the section. Let me see if I'm just have no idea what I'm doing or what. Oh, for blog in blogs. Do we try this out? Seems to be working for others. But it doesn't seem to work for me. Story of my life. Does it need to be inside of a for loop? Let's try it inside of the for loop. For blog in blogs, blog.article count, articles count, and for. Very strange. Oh, we missed something really important here, guys. You see this? You see this? They're assigning a variable blog, which is equal to blogs inside of section.settings.blog. If we scroll down, we should see settings. And they created this blog object. So we have to set the blog object up inside of our section in order to have access to it. All right. I mean, in theory, makes sense. In practice, kind of weird. So this thing just doesn't know what the heck blog is, I suppose. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here into settings. We've got our ID here. And we're just going to set another one up. What am I doing? Data object ID. I'll call this. Can I just call it blog? Just like that. So it needs a unique ID, but the type is blog. So we'll call the ID new-blog. And then the type is equal to blog. And we also need a label. And that can just be blog. So this will make it available to the section. But I think even if we save that, it won't necessarily work right away. Let's see. Right. Blog. Select blog. News. Select. Okay, so this lets you select what blog you want to pull the post from. And now what we need to do is we need to set a variable. So to set a variable, it's curly bracket, %, with a dash, right? Let's see. Yeah, let me check out the reference here because I don't think we've gone into variables yet. Okay, so the dash, I think, just controls white space, but you would just use a regular tag and use the word assign in order to create a variable. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to create a variable just like this, and it's going to equal blogs section.settings.blog. I wonder if this is necessary. What does this do? Let's try it without it. We're going to assign blog is equal to section.settings.blog, and this is going to return the specific blog that we selected here so that we can get the articles count for that blog. We're going to try like this without all of the other fancy stuff to see if it works. Don't hold your breath, but let's see. Okay, we do have our blog, but we don't have our articles count. So let's try doing what the original did, which is blogs, and then inside of these square brackets, we call section.settings.blog. Oh, before we do that, I made a mistake. This is pulling the ID and not the type. And our ID is not blog. Our ID is new-blog. So before I say that it doesn't work, let me try it properly here. Oh, here we have the number 1. There is at least one blog post published on this website. Cool. Now let's unpublish this blog post. Let's go and set it to hidden. And let's refresh here. And we should no longer see a message. We should see 0 and then no message. Okay, so now this is working. We don't have to do this, I don't think. Not sure what it does, if I'm being totally honest. But now we've assigned blog to mean this. So in theory, you don't have to even do this. In theory, you can just do this. And this is just the shorthand way so that you don't have to write section.settings.new-blog every single time. But in theory, this should be just as effective because it's the exact same thing. Yep, perfect. All right, things are starting to come together now. All right, so we assigned a variable called blog to this value, which is just going and actually querying to see what blog we selected on the Shopify backend. And now we can have the actual article count. So here we've got our unless control flow that just says, unless there are 0 articles, then I want you to do this. So let's actually change what's going to happen. And let's think about it here. So unless there are 0 articles, then I want you to display articles based on range, right? So that way, if we specify we want to show 3, it shows 3. If we specify we want to show 12, it shows 12. Okay, so let's look at this for inspiration. And here you can see what they're using. They're using a for loop here to go and loop through all of the blogs, all of the articles inside of blog.articles, right? And then they set a limit, and they used a setting that they created called post limit. We're going to use the one that we created called posts range. Okay, so let's do something very similar here. We're going to say for article in blog, right? For article in blog dot articles, right? So this blog.articles are all of the articles. And then for each individual article, we want to do something in particular, right? We can also come in here and use the limits. So we can say for article in blog.articles and pass in a limit of, what was it? section.settings.posts-range. So this is going to set an upward limit of what is there. And now let's just go and get our render the article.title. So again, we can use our reference that we were looking at previously. Here we were looking at the blog object, but we can actually go and look at the article object here. And we can actually see what we can pull from the article object. So you can pull author, comments, right? What we want to pull in is the title, article.title. And then we want to pull in probably the image, right? So article, no, that's user image. Article.image. There we go. So let's do that. We want to show the title. And right above the title, we want to show article.image. So let's save that and let's see if we can get it to work. Refresh here. Okay. This did nothing. Oh, ours is still hidden. Save it as visible. And now hopefully we'll see at least one image and one title. Nope, that didn't work. Or article and blogs. Articles. Or article and blog.art. And let's remove this limit. And let's work our way up from here. Let's see what we can do. Oh, here we have the article image URL and then the name. Perfect. So now it's working. Looks like it had to do with this limit that kind of broke things. Section.settings.posts range. Okay, we'll worry about that later. Not sure why that broke. So for article.image, we want to show an actual image. So here you can see how they're doing it. They're actually just loading in an image and passing in data source. So we can say image.url, I believe. Yeah. Let's see. Let's just try doing image source equal and image. And let's see what that does. We might have to add source in, but let's see. Okay, broken image. Now let's try adding dot URL. Okay, that did not work, but it's no longer broken. I'm going to inspect here and see what's going on under the hood. Image source unknown. Okay, let me look at this reference one more time. Image.source. Sorry about that. That's why you got to keep these references open so you don't make mistakes like I do. Okay, that did not work. Image source, article.image.source. What is this returning? Inspect /r. Okay, so I think this is where we'll probably need to get into image filters. So let's go and check out filters really quickly. Filters, image filters. Hello? No? Okay. That's fine. Shopify liquid image filters. URL filters. Okay. Asset image URL, file URL. Let's see. Image URL. So let's try doing that. Let's try adding article.image, pass in a filter, and try to use image URL as the filter and see if it's able to actually get the correct image URL here. There we go. So here is our image that we created. It is tiny, but we were able to show it. now we've got that worked out. I think we're going to want to pass in a few more things here to the image URL, specifically the width variable, so that we can make sure that they're slightly larger. So let's do that. So image URL, we're going to pass in a parameter. We're going to set the width to 500. Is it just like that? Oh yeah, 2 semicolons. 500. So let's try that out so that we can get a larger image and not such a small image like we're seeing here. Let's see. Oh, you're still tiny, sir. Let's see, what am I doing wrong here? Oh, image URL, all one word. Even though it seemed to work with just image URL. Oh, I see. This is the correct way to do it if you're using image URL with IMG instead of IMAGE. Okay. So image URL, and we can just set this to 500. In theory, that should work, but let's take a look. Okay. That did not work. What am I doing here? $100 by 100. Oh, I see. There's an X. I see. So 500X. This is the width, and then if you want height, it would be X500. So we'll do 500X. And that, my friends, should work. There we go. Now we've got our large image and we've got our blog post. Let's do a couple more things. Obviously, we need the image and the blog post to be linked. So let's go and create an A tag. And then for this, we want to get the article.url, I believe. So again, we can look at our reference here. You can see here on the right, everything that we can get. Let me move my head for you guys. See here on the right, these are all the things that you can pull. So we're going to want to pull article URL, just like that. So I'm going to do that here for the image. And we're going to do it one more time for the title. So now these things should be linked when we go and view it. There we go. Now you can see that these are actually clickable. All right, now let's actually go and duplicate that post. We're going to set up a couple of copies of it. Okay, well, is there a way that you can duplicate this without having to rewrite everything? The year is 2021. Shopify still does not allow you to duplicate blog posts directly through their platform. It is a sad year. All right, we're going to go and just create a couple of blog posts here. Let me pull this out. We're going to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. and it's all going to have the same content. We're just going to number them. Test blog post 1. Come on, Shopify. Hopefully you guys are still hanging in there with me. I know it's a lot of content to cover. It's definitely probably too much for a single live stream to go through all of Shopify Liquid. But hopefully by the end of this, you've got a good idea of how to use some of the basic features, and more importantly, how to actually look up what you're missing so that you can kind of figure the rest out, you know? So this is called test blog posts number 2. Featured image. We're going to have to go back into Photoshop, my friends. We're going to have to resize all of these other ones to be the same size. So let's do that really quickly. Obviously, if you guys don't have Photoshop, you guys can use whatever media viewer or editor that you guys currently have installed on your computer. What you use doesn't really matter as long as you're resizing them properly. I would recommend that you try to resize them to all be the same size, just so that there's consistency. Obviously, that might be harder for some of us than others based on what images we're using, but I'm going to try to keep them all 1200 by 800. And I purposely picked images that had the exact same aspect ratio so that we wouldn't have to crop anything. All right, now that that's done, we have our images that we can upload. We're going to do test blog post number 3 now. Oh, Shopify. Why are you so slow? I'm going to refresh here, guys, because the platform is just being very slow. I'm going to close out these other tabs because I feel like it's causing some issues. That's blog post 3. Same content. Choose an image. Create another blog post. Gotta make sure to set them to visible as well. By default on Shopify, they will be set to hidden. I forgot to set this one to visible. So let's do that. Okay, 2 more. 2 more, and then we are done. Test blog post 5. Set to visible, save. All right, last one. So now we've got 6 blog posts to kind of play around with here. Okay. So now when we reload, you'll see it'll pull in a few more. Let's set up some line breaks here. To make things look a little bit nicer. So post number 6, post number 5, post number 4, all that good stuff. Okay, so now what we want to try to figure out is how we can limit the post based on the range that we selected. Right now it's showing everything, right? So let's try to say right here, How can we do what they did, which is set a limit? I'm gonna try to do it again, just like they did it. The posts range. And let's see if that works. It was 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So now let's actually, I'm gonna zoom out real quick. So you can see that there's 3 of them. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the range now to 6, and it should change how many posts are being shown from 3 all the way to 6. Very cool. So looks ugly, but you understand the functionality or how that works. Okay, now let's see what we can do here. We don't need any of this stuff because we're showing 3 at a time, but I do want just to kind of implement these classes to make things look a little bit nicer. So I'm just going to put this inside of a div. So this is my div. It has a class of grid item and then medium up --1 -3rd. What that's going to do is it's going to put this inside of a little grid for us to hopefully make it look nicer. Let me save that so that there's 6 of them. Now they're inside of these grids. Very, very cool. Oh, this image has the wrong aspect ratio. Let me see if I can fix that. Need this to be 1200 by 800. And again, what the image looks like doesn't matter to me. So I'm gonna just go and increase the size. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do this if this was for yourself. Hello? I just want to save the same image as a JPEG. Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna go and just change that image so that they're the same height. I wish there was an easy way for me to duplicate this for you guys so we can see how it looks with 12, but I think you guys get the gist here. So we'll move on. Here we go. So here are our 6 blog posts. We've got the image and we've got the title, and we can kind of update this range to show 3 or 6 or 9 or 12, which is really, really cool. See what this full screen. So we probably need to add some more classes here. So yeah, there needs to be a parent container to kind of tell it that it's a grid. And then there's another one here called page width that just makes sure that everything is controlled properly within the right size. So what we're gonna do here, dot page width, that's going to be our parent container here. It's gonna hold everything. And then inside of that, we're gonna have, this uses UL and LI. I'm just gonna use div and see if it works. So let's see if that makes it look a little bit nicer. There we go. Now it's inside of a nice little grid and we've got some better spacing. Add some line breaks here, just make things look a little nicer. There we go. Now we've got a little grid for our blog posts and it actually looks pretty decent. Okay, let's try something else. What I really want to get into now, guys, is this page that Shopify created. They're called Shopify Liquid Code examples. I'm going to drop it in the chat for you guys. But essentially what they've done here is they've taken things that you're going to probably need to do, and they've just kind of standardized it for you so that instead of having to go and write all the liquid yourself and figure everything out step by step the way we've been doing up until now, you can actually just come to this website, search for what you need to do, and then grab the code and paste it where you need to paste it. So we're going to actually just go through a couple of these to show you just how easy, once you understand Liquid, how easy it is to update and customize your theme. So what I want to do is I want to go and let's actually just close a lot of this stuff because we don't need it all. What I want to do is I want to add to the very bottom, let's say we want to add the payment options, the available payment options right down here. So normally you'd have to go and figure out the code and figure out where to put it, all that good stuff. But if you use Shopify Liquid Code examples, they actually have some global things that you might need, including copyright text, but also, if I remember correctly, they have payment icons, which is really cool. So this is going to actually tell you exactly where you need to add it, and is going to give you all the code that you need in order to get it done, which is a huge time saver. So I'm going to go and copy this, and I'm going to do exactly what it says here. I'm going to add it to my footer.liquid section. Okay, so we're going to go right here. We're going to go into our files, and we're going to look up footer.liquid, which should be a section. Maybe I'm wrong here. There it is, footer.liquid. Not sure why it didn't come out in the search. And now we can go and set the payment icons. So for example, here it says if section settings show payment icons is true, then show payment icons. If you see something like that, then all you need to do is toggle the section and it should work, right? So if we come to footer, right, it says show payment icons is on, but we're still not seeing any payment icons. Again, that's because it's a development store and there are no payment methods. But that might actually mean that it's not a good one to show you here. But I'm going to paste in this code that we copied. And I'm going to paste it right there and see if it changes anything. And if not, let's go into our theme settings and see if we can turn on some payments. At least a test here. Okay, we're going to have to go and turn some on. That's okay. Let's do that really quickly. And if we can't, we'll go and find another one that we could use. So we'll go into our settings, payments. Come on, Shopify. Please. Please, sir. I'm not sure if it's just not loading because this is a development store. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's try some manual payment methods. And say, I don't know, bank deposit. Activate bank deposit. Okay, now let's refresh here and see if we see anything for bank deposit. Yeah, there's not going to be an icon for that, of course. Let's see if we can turn on any of these without having to like log in and do a bunch of stuff. Oh, activate the test payment provider. No, that's if we want to process. I don't care about that. Let's try maybe activating PayPal and see if it lets me. I'm going to do this on another screen to not leak a bunch of personal information. I hope you guys understand. But all I'm doing here, logging into my PayPal account to set it up on this thing. Okay, I do believe that worked. Let's go and check out this and see if we've got any payment icons to show. Cool. So came out kind of in the wrong spot here. What I want to do is let's actually delete the custom code that we added. And I want to see how this works by default. This is in the Dawn theme. If you're not using Dawn, you might not have this option. So you might have to actually use the snippets. But if you do have Dawn, looks like it's already built in. And if you want, you can actually just replace it. Get rid of that with this code. So I'm going to try doing that. I'm going to try replacing this code with the new code that we got. Settings, section settings, show payment icons. Yeah. Let's see. This is totally different, but let's see if it still works here. Looks like we got some trolls in the chat. Welcome to the stream. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, my friend. Kind of weird the way that it shows up all the way up here. It is in the footer though. Let's see what's going on. Is it because it's in a ULLI? Assign show payment icons equal true. So it looks like because it's in these LIs, it's kind of jumping up top. Let's take a look at what the CSS is telling us here. Try doing a couple things here. I'll try playing with these display settings. That's not doing much here. Let's try this. This is just the footer stuff. I feel like these LIs are set to like position absolute or something. It's really strange. I'm going to try something here really quickly. I'm going to try deleting this UL and then inspecting the footer. Yeah, so it's definitely this UL that is being weird. Let's try position relative here. We actually want it to be down here, which is in this grid, this 1/2. So let's take this. Oh, you know what, guys? I see what I did wrong. So this code that we cut out, this isn't rendering anything, guys. This is just logic that's saying, hey, yeah, this is set to true. And this is being checked down here in the footer. Let's see. So if we keep going down, we should see the place where those icons appear. Okay, here's the copyright content. So we're getting close. Oh, and here is the payment stuff. If show selectors. Okay. Oh, these are the social icons. Just make sure that I'm looking at the right thing here. Small hide 1/2. Okay, yeah. So this is one up from here. Sorry about that. Accidentally clicked Photoshop. Okay, so it seems to be down here where it's occurring. This else right here controls this div. But it's a self-closing div. And then we've got here, payment icon markup is clearly a section that we're rendering, right? Payment icon markup. I want to look that up. This might be new to Dawn, so it's pretty new to me. Let's see. Shopify. Let me see inside my code where this exists. So there's this capture that happens. What is capture? Is that like OBS or OB buffer or something like that? Shopify liquid capture. This captures the string inside of the opening and closing tag and then assigns it to a variable. So variables created using capture are stored as strings. Okay, so they're just capturing, let me close that. They're actually just capturing all of this stuff right here. And then they're saving it as payment icon markup. So if I wanted to change that specific thing in Dawn theme, right, I can go and just copy this stuff right here. Specifically this ULLI is probably what we need to change here. Again, if you don't have this on your theme, or you already have this on your theme, you don't need to do this at all. I just want to show you guys how this works if we did want to change anything here. And let's see if that actually works now. We should see now the icons down here in theory. There we go. And obviously we can kind of control how that looks and feels by adding in styles or whatever. So that one wasn't too useful, guys, not gonna lie. So let's actually go and do a useful snippet here. Let's go back and let's actually find one that is going to be useful. Let's see. Call to action. This is important. A call to action section. And this actually tells you everything you need to do. To create a new section called call to action in your sections folder. And then you can navigate to your theme editor and select add section. Okay, so let's try this out. This has everything already set up for us, so we don't have to write anything. We should be able to just copy and then follow these instructions. So we're going to go in the sections folder and we're going to create a call to action.liquid file. So again, files, sections, new file, call to action.liquid. We're going to paste all of that in. I'm not going to change a single thing in there. Okay, now let's go into our backend. I'm going to refresh here. And let's try actually adding that custom CTA section. Let's see, it's called call to action is the name of it. So let's go here, scroll down, add section, call to action. There we go. And now we've got our little call to action section. I wonder if I can fix that by doing a display property. There we go. I'm just going to do that really quickly to fix this. I'm just going to add style, display, inline flex. And that should fix that weird overlap that we're seeing. I'm going to save it just so I don't have to add that back in. And here is our call to action section. Obviously, there's a bunch of things that you're going to need to do that are theme specific. So for example, I'm probably going to want to add a same kind of class here that says div class page width. Right, so let's do that to their code just so that it looks better and constrained within the same kind of column grid system. And yeah, here's our call to action. Now we should be able to just come in here and make changes. So super simple, easy way to actually go and create sections and use Liquid without actually having to know too much of what you guys are doing. Obviously, I always recommend that you go through the process to learn first how Liquid works, learn how object tags work, learn how tags work, learn how what was the third one? Sorry guys. What was the third one? Filters. Learn how filters work. And then from there you can start to use these to allow you to actually go and create these reusable parts. So let's see, previous and next article button, product limit. What's another good one that we can do here? Social media navigation. This is an interesting one. One thing I wish they'd do, if someone from Shopify ever sees this, you guys should add a screenshot of what it is that you guys are adding here, because unfortunately we're not mind readers, and most of us, if you're using this, probably are not willing to code this by yourself. So a visual representation would be good. And actually this is perfect. We're going to actually use this and we're going to then use Shopify blocks to make it dynamic. So let's use this as a starting point. It says here, place the following code where you want it to appear. I'm going to copy and we're going to use this as a baseline. And we're going to create a new section. We're going to call this social media.liquid. And we're going to paste this in as a starting point. But as you guys already know, social icons.css. Do I have this? Assets. I don't have that. So this is from 2019. This might have been a file that existed before, but I don't have this right now. Social icons. We're going to leave it and see if it actually loads anything useful, but I doubt that that's going to work on our theme. Unless that's like a global style. It says it is a global asset. So maybe it's a Shopify asset that I don't see here. We'll leave that as is. And now let's go and write the schema that we need in order to have this be a section that works. So again, we look at the call to action. It's very similar. Name, settings, presets. That's pretty much all that we need in order to get this to work. So let's go and write that. So the name, social media nav, and what was the other one? Was it label? Settings. And that's an array. Inside the array, JSON data object. Okay. And then we want to also pass in presets. And is that an array? Yeah, right. Yeah. And that takes name and category. Category. Okay. Now inside of these settings, this is kind of where we can create whatever it is that we need to create. I'm curious if we can actually just leave settings blank and it'll still work. Let me open up my terminal, see if it causes an error here. Setting type is required. Can you load this without settings? Let's take a look. Let's see if that's made it available to us here in the backend. Let's see if we can add now. Called social media nav. Nope, doesn't. So we need to add settings. Give that a name, a type, and a label. And for the type, let's just use text. For the name, is it name or ID? It's ID. Yeah, ID, not name. We can call that social nav. And then for the label, we can go ahead and say message. And that's fine. Save it. Invalid JSON in tag schema. Settings, presets. What did I do wrong here? Is it this comma? Okay. That should have fixed it. Okay, now let's try social media nav. Very cool. So yeah, doesn't look too great because it's just using the static HTML that we copy and pasted. And like I said, this is not in our current theme. I'm hopeful that Shopify will actually come in here and update all of the liquid code examples for Dawn. At this point, only a matter of time, but very likely that this is going to be a little bit limiting if you're using a new theme like the Dawn theme. This is probably better for the debut theme, and it's probably made to work really well with debut theme. So if you're coming off an old theme, that's a really good reference for you. But if not, you're probably going to want to kind of customize it yourself. So what we're going to do now is first, let's go and add up here, let's say like an H2. And inside of that, we're going to render this text field that we created. And the ID is social-nav, right? So we're going to say render section dot settings dot social-nav as an H2. And now in theory, whatever we type into this H2 should come and appear right above. So let's try that out and see if it works. Again, we're going to go and add our custom social media nav section here. And now we can add our message, which is follow us on social media. Right? Very easy. I'm going to save it. We're going to do a couple more things here, like adding the div that has a page width. Make sure that everything looks good, even though it's doesn't look great right now. So bottom of that UL or unordered list, I can close my div tag. There we go. So what I want to do is I don't want the person who owns the website, whether it's me or my client, I don't want them to have to come in here and let's say the day that they create a new social network, like I don't want them to have to come in and edit code. That's such a huge pain. Now that we have Shopify 2.0 and sections everywhere, we can actually just create this as a section the way that we're doing. And we can actually use blocks in order to treat it as a kind of repeater field. So that way they can go and add the social media nav and they can add blocks inside of that nav or inside of that section, as many blocks as they need in order to display all of their social media accounts. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take this that we've got and we're going to add a new thing called blocks, all in lowercase. And just so that I don't waste too much time here, I'm going to go and pull up on my other screen a previous video that we did. This is the one for testimonials on Shopify. You can find that on the channel if you're interested. But this has already set up for it, or for us, an example of how to use blocks. So here you can see the way that we kind of load it up. It's exactly the same as we did for settings. It's just nesting those settings inside of these blocks object. Okay, so we're going to create a block, and that block is going to control a social network. Okay, so we'll set blocks equal to an array. Inside of that array, we will create a JSON data object. And inside of that data object, we will do exactly as we've done before. We'll pass in a name. We will pass in a type. And then we will pass in some settings. Inside of the settings is, again, another array with, you guessed it, another JSON data object. And inside of that will be all of the custom fields that we want to create. So let's think about this, right? We've got a block. The block is going to be called a social media network. I think that's fine. And then the type, we can go and give it a custom type. We'll call this social-network. And then inside of that, let's think about what we want to display inside of each of these blocks. So the best way to do it, if you've already got the HTML, is to just identify what the specific things that need to change are. So in my case, I want to be able to control the URL of the social media network. I want to be able to control the name of the social media network. And I want to be able to control what icon is being used. Okay. And we don't need to really do anything here, because if you notice, the word for the label is the same as the word for the class. The only difference is the label has a capitalized word. So we're going to be able to use URL filters for that, which means that we only need to worry about the URL and the name of the network. Those are the two things that we need to worry about, okay? So let's come back down here into our settings for our block, and we're going to go and create now the first one. We need an ID, and this one's going to be called social URL. And then for the type, we can go and we can give this, I believe URL is one of them. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Let's see here. I've got so many references open. Let me just close these out. Let's just go with URL, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Actually, you know what we can look at? We created an entire reference called liquid ref, and this tells us everything we can use here. Oh, but we only went through the basic ones, huh? So, let's see. Let's find that. For section schema. These are the contents. Shopify section type. Is this the one? No, this does not seem correct. It's really annoying because I had it open, but it's so hard to find, guys, sometimes. The documentation is just so dense. Let's see. Go in settings. Okay, here we go. These are the advanced ones that we didn't get to cover. And URL is one of them. So we'll leave that as URL. And the next one that we want to create, again, we'll create a little data object. We'll pass in an ID. And a type. The ID for this one is going to be social name, and then the type is going to be text. Let's see, is there anything else that we need here? A label. Let's pass in a label. This one will be URL. And this one will be network name. All right, let's save this and let's see what we've got so far. I'm gonna refresh here. Okay, this did not work, which means that we have an issue in our terminal. Invalid JSON tag schema. So nondescript. Let's see. Let's see. I've got my reference here next to me so that I can make sure everything looks good. a name, a type, and then settings, and then we pass in ID, type, and label. Not sure what we did wrong there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this code and I'm gonna throw it into a JSON validator. You can again just use jsonlint.com, throw that in, validate JSON. It says it's valid JSON. Okay, but if I save it, it doesn't seem to work. Let me see. Let's see if we can reload here. No, we still only have this part. So this is closing here, this is closing here, this is closing here, this is closing here, and this one closes here. Clearly the issue has to do here with blocks, because this is the only one that's not working. I'm going to change this to text. I'm going to try stopping this and serving one more time. Okay, when I save, no, it doesn't break. So let's refresh. But the blocks are still not showing up. I'm not getting an error, but the blocks are still not showing up here. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I forgot that you actually have to go out of the object. So here I was editing the object like crazy, but there's nothing in here because we need to go out and add a social media network as a block to this section. So we did everything right. Everything was fine. We just forgot to come in here and click add social media network. So let's do that. Let's try adding a social media network. I'm going to click inside of it and then we can go and actually paste a URL. So we can just do, let's say instagram.com/UXHacks. That's me. And then here we can say the network name is Instagram. And let's save. So obviously we're not seeing anything change in the front end yet, because we need to actually do the logic and the rendering code, right? So close this for now. We've got the schema all done, which is great. Now let's go and actually change this stuff to work the right way. So essentially, for every single social media network that gets added, we want to create a list object, right? So what we're gonna do is delete them all except for one, because that's the only one that we're gonna need to do. And now we're gonna do some control flow here. We're gonna open a curly bracket, and then we're going to add some parentheses so that we can do logic. And we can say, let's see, how do we do this? I need a refresher here, sorry. So we can say for block in section.blocks. So if you remember here, created right here our schema. This is section, and we normally go section.settings, but we actually need to come into blocks this time and not into settings. And then we're going to just loop through each of these blocks so that we can then pull in the social URL and the social name. Okay, so let's do that really quickly. We're going to say for blocks in section blocks. We're going to then come down here and we're going to end that for loop so that we don't forget later. Come on, and for. Okay. And now this is going to show one time for every block that gets rendered. Now what we need to do is replace these URLs with the block that we're editing. So not blocks, right? Because we're looping through it. Now we're talking about just the individual block. And what we need to do is we need to then say, I want the block settings, right? Because that's where it's stored. Block.settings, right? In terms of like where it's layered in the JSON object. And then we want to get the social-URL. So let's try that. Block.settings.social-URL. Now we're going to do this exact same thing for the label, but instead of social URL, it's social name. And we're going to do the exact same thing here for the icon, right? But we want the label to be a capitalized version, or let's see. So if we capitalize it here, then we want a lowercase version here. So let's add a filter, and then let's go and add lowercase as the filter setting. All right, let's save that. And let's see if it works. I'm going to refresh here, and hopefully we no longer see Twitter and we see Instagram. Okay, that's not working. Let me inspect and see what's going on. Got the UL, the LI, and the A are all here. But our lowercase filter did not work. So let's take a look at Shopify liquid filters and see what we need to do. Oh, downcase. Okay. I will do as you command. Downcase. Save it. Let's refresh here. Okay. Let's see what's wrong now. Looks like that's just not an icon that we have access to. And I get the feeling it's because I deleted that first line that has all the style sheets. I thought it wasn't loading, but I guess it was loading. So we're going to just pull this back in. The social icons, we're going to make sure that we still pull that in instead of removing it like I thought we'd be able to. And that should hopefully fix things for us. There we go. Now we've got our little Instagram icon. And more importantly, we should be able to come down here and add another social media network. We should be able to add, now let's say Facebook. Add that URL. And now we can add the network name, which is Facebook. And now we've got our Facebook icon. I can come here and do it again for Twitter. Twitter.com. UX hacks. Twitter. Very cool. So now you guys know kind of how Liquid works. You've seen how you can go and actually use control flow to do these if-else statements, these unless statements. You saw how to do these for loops to iterate through kind of these objects and pull specific information from them. Let's see. What I can show you as well. The actual template ones, you don't have to worry about too much. I know that you can use comments if you want. So for example, if I wanted to leave a comment here so that I remember what this style sheet is, I can go and use the tag, right, which has the parentheses or the percentage sign, excuse me, and I can say comment. And now anything written until I close the comment, like end, like this, end comment, will only be visible to me in the code, right? So end comment. And now here I can say style sheet controls icons for social media networks, right? If I save this, we shouldn't see anything on the front end. So let's go and verify that we don't see that message on the front end. But we have that message now for our developers to see. And it's better than just coming in here and using, for example, a HTML comment. Because HTML comments are actually displayed in the source code. So that's the difference between a liquid comment using this and an HTML comment. Is the liquid comment will only be visible to people who edit the actual file, versus if we actually put an HTML comment and we look at the HTML source code, you will actually see the comment there in the HTML. So let me show you exactly what I mean. Let's see, is that not true? Does it automatically strip out HTML comments? Yeah, it looks like Shopify automatically strips out HTML comments. So I guess you can kind of choose whether you want to use comment liquid style or you want to use an HTML comment. Very interesting. I thought for sure this would display, but no, looks like they get stripped out just the same, which is really, really cool. Let's see what else we covered. So iteration, we even set limits for the iteration, which is really cool. Template, we talked about really quickly. And then variables, we did very, very quickly. Capture, we talked about. We didn't really get to do increment or decrement, but they're pretty straightforward. Definitely check out the documentation if you want to kind of see more of these things that we didn't get to cover in detail. But I think that does it for me, guys. I think we were able to cover a lot of really useful information about how to use Liquid for your Shopify theme and how to actually edit your Shopify themes so that you can create your own sections, create your own blocks, and actually do all of this relatively easily without having to know much more than a little bit of Liquid, a little bit of HTML, and a little bit of JSON. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. Let me go and just let you guys know that if you haven't already, to please go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want to make sure that you are alerted when we go and actually do our next live stream. Our next live stream is going to be next Friday. We're going to be doing this every single Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys didn't get to make it for this one, you're watching the replay, I really want you to come and join us for the next one. I think for the next one, we might be doing a deep dive into JSON for Shopify because it's such an important part of creating themes in Shopify 2.0, and I want to really make sure that we get it down perfectly. So again, thanks so much for your time. I'm David Martin from UX Hacks, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.